And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Knowles coming at you for the RBLR Sports Podcast. Padcast? I guess I'm from, Boston or Minnesota? I'm from somewhere else.
Wicked good podcast.
Yeah, exactly. But, folks, I am back this week with a voice. I have an actual voice. It is amazing, I know. But I am somehow returning, and I am here with Eureka, our producer. Carlos is busy this week, so we have Eureka stepping in to help us out again, and he is going to help me go over the Eureka. It is the preview for the first game of the 2024 season for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. How much bigger can it get?
Hashtag USL kickoff, the director's cut.
Yes,
it's the real kickoff. I'm sure Louisville City feels the same way. The premier team, one of the premier team, the massive club that is the Tampa Bay Rowdies, was not involved in USL kickoff. Guess what, buddy? You saved the best for last, and here we are. It's hate week. I'm sorry, Chris Hockman, you're a buddy, but you're gonna have to sit over there in the chat room because this week we're coming for San Antonio, buddy. But other than that, James, other than being aggressively hyper this weekend and just like itching to go to Al Lang, other than that, I'm pretty chill. How about you, buddy?
Yeah, I feel roughly the same way. Like you said, aggressively hyper, but it only comes out in bursts, right? It comes out when we think about the green and gold and the boys wearing the stripes on their sleeves coming up this year. But so it is finally time for Tampa Bay Rowdy Soccer. As I said, we have a game to preview today, and to do all of that, Eureka, we've got some stuff to go over in relation to the Rowdies. But we've also got a couple of other things that are related to this, and that includes an interview with a Tampa Bay Rowdy, an interview with a San Antonio podcast. There is so much on RBLR Sports this week for the Rowdies. You got to stay tuned. You got to pay attention. You got to keep your eyes peeled on social media because we have stuff coming out all over the place.
James, they also have to hit that like button and that subscribe button because we've been giving you, I said it last week, I'll say it again, James, you have been giving all of us Rowdies fans amazing interviews. We've had Georgie Ristov. We've had Michael Danchoff. We've had head coach Robbie Nielsen.
Yep.
And you're about to, you listening to this show right now or watching our beautiful faces on YouTube, you're about to get another banger interview by my man James Knowles. So let's go. Hit that button. Subscribe right now.
There we go. You heard the man. He came on to tell you this. You got to listen to Eureka. That's what I do every week. You got to listen to him. Now, I shouldn't have to say this, but if you haven't, get your tickets to the season opener. What are you doing? It is the home and season opener. Get your tickets. You got to be there, folks. Yes. You got to be there. Come hell or high water, I will be at that game. We will hopefully see you there. Now, Eureka, you've already told everybody to subscribe on all the places, so we're just going to jump into the news here. First off, this is a small piece of news, but it's something we should get to. The Rowdies beat OCB, that's Orlando City's B team, 3-0 on Friday with goals from Damian Rivera, Danny Crisostomo, and Leo Fernandes. That's something about that name, Eureka. Something about that name stands out.
That's a pretty you mean former USL Championship MVP Leo Fernandes?
I think that's the guy. Unless we're mixing him up and there is another Leo Fernandes playing soccer at a high level. Well, I'm pretty sure that's the
brothers,
guy.
But they're not named Leo as well. But
that's true.
Man, isn't it? It's so great to beat. I know it's OCB, and I know it was behind closed doors. But it feels good to beat Orlando. It still feels good to beat Orlando. Yeah. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way that I look at it too. But remaining in Orlando, there's actually a little bit of news from that city that relates to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. We have signed a former UCF defender, central defender, in fact, Zane Bubb, who is, he's a Florida native, not originally from Orlando, but like I said, he went to UCF. Yeah. He's from Jacksonville, and I saw him play a couple of times for UCF as a central defender. He is a big body. He is 6'3", 6'4".
Yes.
But obviously he's a young guy. You know, we shouldn't think that he's lumbering by any means. It'll be interesting to see exactly how he transitions from a college team and college setup into the professional ranks. I'm not sure how that will go for him just because I don't know how it goes for anybody in, their first season. I did like Zane Bubb when I saw him. I thought that he had the potential to make it as a pro. So now that he is in the professional setup, I'm looking forward to see how it works for him. And I really hope that he ultimately becomes a big player for us down the line. Whether or not, it happens this season, who can say? But it's cool that somebody from Florida has made it all the way through the ranks in Florida soccer and is now a professional here.
Yeah, and he's not uncredentialed. I mean, already in his short career, I mean, he made his way from North Florida to Virginia Tech
That's
to be
right.
a starter. But then didn't really work out at Virginia Tech. But then he comes in to Central Florida, which unfortunately, as a USF Bull, I have to say go Bulls, and it's kind of bittersweet. I mean, he's a rowdy now. He's a rowdy
Exactly.
now, so he's all good. But when he was at the Knights, unfortunately, they had success. He had success as all conference first teamer in the Sun Belt, a defensive player of the week a couple times there, and started every game and scored multiple goals. So, I mean, there's not really much more you can do as a defender than be
Right.
the best defender at times, to be named to the best on the team of the best defenders, and also put a couple in the back of the net from time to time. And I'm really excited to see what he can do at the USL Championship level. But again, this goes back to we have all these senior level, like the starters are absolutely credentialed on this team, but we're building this sort of depth pieces of young, hungry, established, and accomplished young men that are waiting in the wings to get some time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is focusing at this point on the depth, and I think that Zane Bubb, even if he is not necessarily the guy that we're going to see starting week in, week out, I think that he will absolutely be a solid depth piece.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that we get to see a good portion of that as the year goes by. Now, hold your horses, Eureka, and all you listeners. That is not the only signing that the Rowdies made this week. No, no,
Okay.
no. Trialist 1, Trialist 2, Trialist 3, and 4 all signed this week.
Let's go.
I'm sure that there were actually more than that, but there were a ton of Trialists that were converted into full-time Rowdies over the course of this past week. So the Rowdies have also signed midfielder Joey Desart. Joey Desart is a player that I actually remember from Wake Forest a couple of years ago. He is a Philadelphia Union youth player. He went through their academy system and then, like I said, went to Wake Forest. I liked him there. I think that he was not necessarily the best player on that Wake Forest team, but that is a good team, so it's not that surprising. In the meantime, though, he has gone on to play for, I think, Orlando City's B team as well, not the one that we just beat, because he was on our side in that battle. But Joey Desart is looking like a pretty good midfielder. And again, if he doesn't end up a starter, then we have a very solid depth piece here. He's a younger guy. And between Zane Bubb and Joey Desart, those are two young players that Robbie Nielsen said he wants to kind of build the team around. He doesn't want necessarily to have all veteran players. He wants to have a younger core. And those are two players that really go to that, and to that goal for him.
Yeah, and he was recently at Huntsville City, so that completes another chapter in the Huntsville City to Tampa Bay Rowdies train. Our former head coach and assistant coach now, Nicky Law, probably saw him a couple times, I'm assuming. Well, I mean, he was there last year at Huntsville City, so we'll see. Yeah. I mean, at least he's getting reports on him before we bring him in. So I'm excited about that. Another guy that was at Wake Forest to Orlando City. So maybe there's a little bit of a pattern emerging there too. But again, youth never hurts, and if they can play at a high level, let's go, Joey.
Yeah, exactly. That is a good way to look at it. So we talked about how Trialist 3 and 4 signed. We have more signings to announce. And by we, I mean the Rowdies already did this. But here on RBLR Sports, we're going to bring up the 2 academy signings for the Rowdies this past week. So youth players Christian Ortiz and Tanner Aiken also signed first-team contracts. Now, I'm assuming these are USL first-team contracts, which means they are still eligible for college, if I'm not mistaken.
They are academy contracts. Yes, that's correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
So that covers it. Christian Ortiz is 16, turning 17, and he is a striker. Apparently, he's as tall as somebody else that we will be recording in a little bit. That's something that I've heard, at least. And Tanner Aiken is a goalkeeper. I believe he is 17 years old, but he is a player who apparently has some Turkish background because he has already spent some time in Turkey playing for one of the clubs over there on their youth side. So he comes back to the Tampa Bay area from where I believe he is originally native, according to the background that I've read. And these are two. Obviously, Tanner Aiken is going to be a depth piece behind Phil Breno and Jordan Farr in reverse order, I guess. But still having an academy player as the third goalkeeper, that's obviously very exciting, and that's going to get him some reps one way or another. In training, you're playing against players who are better than anybody who's going to be, your average 17-year-old, obviously. So that's good for him. And Christian Ortiz has scored a couple of goals in preseason. That was part of the announcement that was made with their signing. So these are two players who could ultimately contribute. Tanner Aiken probably less likely, you could say, just because the goalkeeper, you only get one of those on the field at a time. But, I don't think that Robbie Nielsen is bringing these guys in just to say, hey, we've got some academy players too. I think that these are guys who are going to be on the team and ready to compete if they need to.
Yeah, I think it can work both ways, though. Like, I don't know. We do not know. We're not reporting anything. But if there is an eventual academy side, like if there is a Rowdies 2 or some sort of thing that brokers with that, like Tanner Aiken would definitely be a kind of guy that you'd want to put there. He's already been established overseas on the youth side, but at the very least, even if they don't establish, even if we're a couple years away from something like that, having a goalkeeper come in and sit next to Phil Breno and Farr and Dobson, like let's not set aside the experience that Dobson has as a coach. That, like you said, would you rather, you could go play MLS Next Pro, maybe, like you could go play third division, you could be on some other team like that. But if even sitting on the bench or being around these guys all day in practice, even if you're not playing in the games or maybe getting in a cup or knock on wood, maybe getting a shot if there's an opening that happens. I think that's a phenomenal way to spend before you're even 18 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that's important to highlight when we're talking about players like this. And I'm excited that we are, looking to probably incorporate some guys from the youth team into the actual first team structure this year. So now that will do it for signings. Somehow, 4 right before the season starts. I'm not sure that we're even done. Who can say? But we will see how the league and the season goes this year in the league. I am very excited for so much to get started here. It's awesome. Now, please remember, we put out an article about this. Please remember that this game will be on CBS Sports Golasso Network for a national broadcast. You can get that for free as long as you have the access, which I think most people do just based on, cable or getting an app that allows you to get into that. And I believe that the CBS Sports app or Pluto TV should be sufficient to do that. If you have Paramount Plus, you're already there. You're already good to go. But if you live in the Tampa, that's for everyone who doesn't live in the Tampa Bay area, who is a Rowdies fan. And I'm sure there are plenty of you because we are a massive club. If you are in the Tampa Bay area, if you are anywhere near the Tampa Bay area, I'm going to make it an 2-hour drive. Get to the game. Get to the game, folks. It is the home opener. It is the season opener. We are playing probably the best team in the Western Conference, San Antonio. There is no other way to get more hyped for an opening game than this. There is no better team to play in your first game of the season. You have got to get to Al Lang this Saturday. You have to be there. You have to do it.
Look, the hype is real. Like, and whenever we all talk about it's a magical place. We were talking off air about like getting ready to see the smoke and the tifo and like the crowd is going to be so hype about hoop sleeves on a jersey. Like that's the level of passion that this club has.
Yeah.
What better way than be standing in the middle of that excitement? Or every seat is a good seat at Al Lang. I mean, we're not the PR for the club, but I'm telling you, I've sat in many of the seats. I walk around the stadium every single week that we go there, and it is unlike any other experiences. Clubs have flown in from around the world to play in Al Lang, and you get to see your Tampa Bay Rowdies play in a phenomenal stadium. Guys, and especially when that thing is packed, which it should be for a home opener.
Yeah.
If there's tickets available, you need to get them now. And but there's a great between the Skyway Casuals and Ralph's Mob doing tailgating beforehand, the club providing entertainment and stuff for kids, and it's so much stuff. It's just a phenomenal first class game day experience. This ain't going to whatever. If some people that your friends or whatever think that it's not a top flight experience, you need to drag them out there, get a ticket, get them on there. Yeah, let's go. Come on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Now we have a quick standings update before we get to our interview with a Tampa Bay Rowdy. So there have only been a few games played, but actually quite a few teams were involved, I should say. There were 3 draws this past weekend in amongst those. But mostly it was actually a lot of very interesting results, a lot of very weird results, I might say. So the first weird result leaves us with the Miami FC sitting first overall in the East.
We all expected that, James.
Exactly. First in the East, and somehow first overall in the entire league. I know it's one game, but how did no other team beat somebody 2-0? It's just crazy. Yeah. So the Miami FC got 3 points and a +2 goal differential. There were a lot of other teams that got 3 points, but did not get a +2 goal differential. So somehow they end up first in the league and the East, obviously. Congratulations to Miami after 1 year. I'm sure that the stop the count memes are going to be going around at least their fan base of 4 or 5 people out there, right?
Yeah, all 6 people are really excited for this at Ricardo Silva Stadium.
Exactly.
Really
exactly.
Good. At least the ones they're not paying to be there, right?
Damn, shots fired already. We haven't even gotten started. So that is the first place team in the Eastern and the overall league. Birmingham and Hartford, 2 teams we did not expect, also have 3 points. Indy and Pittsburgh sit at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So again, all of these are just very weird results at this point. Birmingham went out and beat Phoenix. That was not expected.
Okay.
Apparently Phoenix dominated that whole game, and it was just a fluke goal. I did not get to see that one of the games that I saw this past weekend. So, fair enough. But Birmingham got the 3 points, and they sit, like I said, behind the Miami FC in the Eastern Conference. Now, sliding out west for a little bit, Memphis, Oakland, and New Mexico United are the 3 teams that have 3 points out there.
Just like we drew it up.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Las Vegas, El Paso, and Phoenix and Colorado Springs Switchbacks are the basement dwellers after 1 round. So New Mexico United went and beat Pittsburgh, and that's why Pittsburgh has a negative goal differential and sit bottom of the Eastern Conference. Again, Eureka, like you said, just how we drew it up. But in all actuality, these are some kind of weird results. Las Vegas also were leading their opponent. They very quickly went, and then gave up that lead. But it was just it's shaping up to be an interesting year if the first round results are anything to go off of.
Yeah, and this week is crazy too. Just looking around the league, I mean, Rhode Island didn't play last week. Louisville City didn't play last week. Detroit City didn't play last week. FC Tulsa, Monterey Bay didn't play last week. In addition to your Tampa Bay Rowdies, so any one of those teams could win this week and jump up in the standings with 3 points. Early days, of course. We had a shocker in our first game last season, which put us in a weird predicament, but in no way, shape, or form did that kind of shade where we were going to be in the season, even though we didn't pick up any points, even though we looked like we were gonna, or maybe we tied. I'm sorry, we had 3 points in the bag and we tied when this Seba PK in late in the game, but Yeah, I mean, look, early days. Well, I guess the question I'd ask you, James, is like how far in advance, right? Because a lot of people listen to this, and look, we live and die by every minute of Rowdy soccer. But when is the honeymoon over, right? Like is it 4 games, 6 games, where you're kind of like, all right, this is the next time we need to check in to say like, all right, this is like, have identities been established? Who's a real riser or faller, in the league?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's just I think a lot of it kind of depends on the outlook at that point, you know.
Okay.
Are things looking up? Then, the kind of honeymoon phase, so to speak,
Yeah.
that can be extended. That can definitely be extended.
Loudon
But
United, I think, was a perfect example of that last year, right? Didn't they
yeah,
start out? They came out of the gates hot. I might be wrong, but they at least had a good run at some point where we were like, Carlos was like, Loudon United, look at these guys.
yeah, no, I remember that now that you say it.
Yeah.
Carlos was trying to get that train started, but yeah, I mean, like I said, if things are going well, then it can definitely be extended. So it just
Okay.
depends on ultimately like how we're feeling because of the results
That's fair.
that we get. So if we
That's
get,
fair.
a couple of good games, a couple of good results against some good teams
Yeah.
to start us off with, then we're all going to be a lot more excited, obviously, than we're going to be. I remember last season,
Hmm.
we obviously did not start well, and not that we were in a honeymoon phase at that point, but we started out in the preseason looking at this team and we were like, man, they're building something. This is supposed to be the team to go and win it all. They have got all these great pieces, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we're on this rough patch and it's just like, oh, okay. I think that this will turn around, but what's it going to take to turn it around? And it did turn around.
Of
But
course.
yeah, there was a while where, let's say, if we were on a honeymoon through January and February last year, March, April, that would have shut that down real fast.
Yeah. 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 Well, they were also trying to establish season. A team tries to establish their identity, and weird freak things will happen.
Oh yeah.
Like a person that we might be talking to little later on, that really shaded the beginning of last season. So, yeah. Well, I mean, that's a look around the league. Did you want to? How did you want to talk about the week that we're about to talk about, or did you want to wait until we get to our interview first?
Well, let's get to the interview first
I
because
like it. I like it.
obviously, if we can talk to him, it's going to be a little bit more. It's not going to be super related to the game that's coming up because as much as we would love to ask him, all of the tactical questions and the notes and the formation, all that kind of stuff, I really don't think that they're going
He's
to be in
giving
the
up all
mood.
the secrets. He's
Yeah,
giving all the secrets away, guys.
I,
Just
re- I really don't think that they're going to be in the mood to divulge all of that stuff just
all right.
yet.
All right. Well, before we get to that interview, which I know you have not read the title of this, you do not know who it is. You are sitting on the edge of your seat to know who did James Knowles talk to from your Tampa Bay Rowdies. You're going to wait 1 second because I'm going to ask you to go over to shop.rblrsports.com and pick up one of the team-inspired merchandise. We've talked about our massive club. There might be a T-shirt celebrating your massive club, the Tampa Bay Rowdies, over at shop.rblrsports.com. We've got, I mean, or if you like the Rays, the Rays around the corner with their opening days, just spring training is finishing up. Baker Mayfield is back with the Bucks. What better way to celebrate than a T-shirt from shop.rblrsports.com? And if you use the promo code COYR, you're going to get 10% off everything. We've got hats, we've got shirts, stickers, and some stuff that's there. And I'm taking suggestions too. If there's anything you want out there, just holler at me. Let's go. We're at shop.rblrsports.com. There's a link in the description of this video or whatever podcast platform you're using. But without further ado, let's get to James Knowles and his guest of the week.
And everyone, here it is, the interview that we were promising with a Tampa Bay Rowdy, Leo Fernandes, one of the best Tampa Bay Rowdies of the modern era, over 100 appearances for yourself, a USL MVP winner as well. Leo, thanks for joining us. How are you doing today? I'm assuming the biggest week of practice so far.
Yeah, hey James. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. Yeah, doing great, and yeah, finally, game day week is finally upon us.
Yeah, I know it's a little weird for fans to see that, other teams are playing. I don't know what it's like as a player. Maybe you guys kind of bask and getting to see what other teams are putting out there first or what have you. I'm not entirely sure what that's like, but yeah, so I guess, our main thing now, we have a game coming up here. So let's just start with the basics. How has the preseason been going? How is everything getting, everyone up to fitness and everything like that?
Yeah, preseason is good. It's preseason. You're just kind of going through it, trying to get fit, trying to play these games, and just hoping that the season will finally be here. And so happy that it's here. But it's been good, especially for myself after a tough year last year to finally be with the group and finally feel fit and just to be healthy and train and compete again. It was a good preseason.
Yeah, that was actually something that I did want to talk about a little bit, not too much here, but I know last year obviously was cut short for you because I believe it was the preseason last year, so around this time where you tore your Achilles and then, missed unfortunately most of the season there. But with that out of the way, what was the process getting back to fitness like for you? Because you came back earlier than I think a lot of us expected. It was almost like, wow, Leo might be here for the playoffs. But yeah, what was that process like of getting yourself back to working order, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Not because, I mean, obviously the rehab process was tough, but not being able to play the sport that I love for that long, and I've never had a long-term injury like that in my whole career, so it was very difficult. But I had so many people in my corner just guiding me and showing me support throughout the whole process, and then yeah, for me to come back and play those last three games were just a bonus, because when I first went down, everybody was saying that I was out for the year and there's probably no chance that I'll play. But yeah, those three games were a bonus. But I think in hindsight, it's good that I played those three games just because now when I go to this season, I'm already, that's out of my head already, and
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about getting back to full strength.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that's interesting. Again, as a fan, I don't really know what the process is like for most of this stuff to go through. And you're watching your team from the sideline for so long, but you're like, man, I'd love to be out there. I can at least understand that feeling. But yeah, so now that you got through the preseason, I guess we can kind of get into what it's like with the game coming up here. I'm assuming that we can't get into details about formations or lineups or anything like that. Any secrets that the new manager has been working on for you? But how has it been going in terms of the games and getting everybody working on the same page? I'm assuming that everybody's kind of trying to get prepared to work in the same, work towards the same goals that Robbie Nielsen has laid out for you guys, all that kind of stuff. What is it like on a day-to-day process when you're a player and you're on the receiving end of all of these probably fitness tests and all of these new instructions and all of that kind of stuff with a largely new group of guys?
Yeah, it was definitely a learning process. Robbie's come in, he has so much experience. Coach has such a high level, so for us, it was all of us just being open to all the new processes, the new fitness tests, all the running that we've done. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit different. We definitely work in high intensity for short amount of times, and I think that's only going to translate to the field where we're going to be, those quick bursts that are going to give us the advantage to steal the ball and then head to transitions a lot quicker than we've had in the past. So yeah, just his new methodology has been great, and a lot of the new guys are doing really well with it. So I think it's going to be an exciting year.
Now, like I said, I won't ask you to divulge any of the details there, but I think it would be cool for fans to hear, are there any differences in the coaching style between Neil Collins and Robbie Nielsen? I know that we have spoken to Neil Collins every so often, mostly after games, but Robbie Nielsen, we got to do an interview, and that was very gracious of him. Obviously, he seems maybe a little more soft spoken, at least from our perspective. I don't know what it's like for you guys who are out there on the field, but are there any personal differences that you could see between their styles?
You know, I would say, yeah, everyone knows Neil how intense he was, but I think Robbie comes across just as intense, but in a different manner. He may not be yelling at you, but you can tell that this guy means business. He's not one of the guys that you don't want to, give your full 100% focus. And no, with his game plan, I think, not to give too much, but I think I really like how we can not really switch positions, but there's a lot of flow into the game, and how we can solve problems on our own, and he gives us that freedom, and I think that's very important for us as soccer players, because you don't want to be a player where you're looking to the coach to give us the answers. You want to be the player that can solve things on the field. So I think Robbie will do that for us this year, and I think it will help us win a lot more games.
Interesting. So yeah, that's very very cool to hear that it's kind of the onus more maybe on you guys this year to figure things out, not figure things out in a way that that kind of improvises what you're doing on the field. But yeah, I'm obviously looking forward to what that would entail. So with this being the last week before you guys are going, are there any specific instructions that get changed up for the meal or the game day coming up? Like, are you guys doing anything specifically to work on how San Antonio should be approached, and anything like, making sure that they're covered on this side, or they're covered back, back at left back or something like that?
Yeah, I think in terms of training, we definitely dialed it down a little bit, just because of in preseason. We worked really hard. We did a lot of running, a lot of playing. So I think with this year, this week we've kind of deloaded, and trying to get our legs back to 100% for the game. And then in terms of San Antonio, it was good to watch them this weekend, and see how they tried to play, and the things that they did wrong, and where we can take advantage. So yeah, we did a bunch of video on them, and hopefully we get to take advantage of it this Saturday. But it's week one. Every team is still trying to figure it out. We're not going to be perfect this week, but we hope and we will win the game.
Yeah, obviously that would be the best start to the season. I know
Yeah.
that San Antonio were probably looking to do that themselves. But with the transition as well under Robbie Nielsen here, I wanted to ask you, because you're now, one of the senior players on the team with your over 100 appearances for the club. You've been around for as long as you have, and you've seen all of these different changes from not only the personnel at the team, but the coaching staff, the front office, even at this point. So, how much does the coach rely on players such as yourself to, I don't know, help integrate not only his ideas and his tactics and whatnot, but help bring the team together as a unit so that they can all buy into everything?
Yeah, I think it's super important. The first thing he did was, when he got hired, he had a meeting with a lot of the older guys, the veteran guys. So I think he understands that we need him, and he needs us just as much as we need each other. So it's super important that we have everybody on board, and everybody is pushing in the right direction. And I think in the past we've been like that, and that's why we've won a lot of games in the past. And I think if we keep at it, it's only gonna to be the same, and even more wins.
Yeah, that's obviously very positive too. Now, I know naturally within the season the team is going to be looking to make the playoffs and probably win a trophy. I'm assuming that's the goal every year. I wanted to dial down on, you know, with the differences, I guess, in the way that some leagues are going about that. Let's just leave it there. The US Open Cup seems for USL teams to be maybe a bit of an opportunity where it might not have even been quite as open as it was before. Now, I'm assuming that down the line there would be, CONCACAF Champions League, or their new name for it. That would still be on the line here. But is that something that you guys have talked about as a group, with the changes that are, a possible change to the schedule of what the Open Cup would look like for teams making it down the line?
It's something I don't. It's not something that we as a team have talked about, but me personally, I go through, whenever we play a game, I'm going to win it. So I think this year it's an opportunity for us to go deep in the tournament. I've been very disappointed on the way up. I've been disappointed for us not making a deep run in the past. I think that's something that we've lacked. We've made it. I think we've won one game only since I've been here. So hopefully this year we can make a run at it. And I don't think there's ever been a year where we've never took it serious. So hopefully this year we can get it. We can get a couple wins, and then you never know. We'll be in the final and have another chance to win a trophy.
I mean, obviously, we would love to see the Rowdies win every possible trophy out there, but I think that just again, from our perspective, it just looks like there's such an opportunity here, even more so than there would have been. Not that, you guys might not have taken it seriously, of course, but just if the MLS teams want to do what they want to do, then, a USL championship team probably is looking like a much better potential winner in it. But along kind of similar lines here, if there are any changes personally for you, and I'm sure one of them would probably be avoiding injury or something like that, but what is something that you would like to do for yourself this upcoming season to, you're, again, one of the best players that we've had in the modern era, but everyone is always looking to improve themselves. So is there something that you think that you would have been working on in the off season or over the preseason to get ready for 2024?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Obviously, stay on the field and be there, play as many games as I can. And yeah, and the off season was honestly one of the toughest off seasons I've had this year, just because just really trying to finish my rehab in the most positive way and trying to get myself back to 100%. And making sure that when I come back, it's like I never really miss a step. And this injury is tough, just because I come back in whenever it was 8 months, 9 months. It still takes me a couple more months after that to really get into the form that I was before, and that's going to take some time. To be honest, like I'll have weeks where I'm feeling great, and then the next week I'll pick up a little like nagging injury. So then I'll bring my confidence down a little bit. So it's just a part of the process. Right now I'm feeling great. So hopefully I just keep at it and stay on the field as long as I can and score goals and assists and help the team any way that I can.
Absolutely. Well, Leo, I have one more serious question for you, and then I wanted to do a couple little quicker ones that were fun. But the last question that I had that was related to the team specifically was, something that we at RBLR Sports hit on a lot, and we talked about this with Robbie Nielsen for ages, actually, was the youth team. And, the Rowdies have now signed 2 players from the academy system, I guess, and Christian Ortiz and Tanner Aiken coming in. What have they looked like in the preseason for you, and what are your takeaways so far just on their games?
Yeah, Christian, I love Christian. I'm putting him under my wing. I'm trying to help him out as much as I can, but he's a great kid. He comes in and he wants to learn every single day. And I think when you're that young, that's all you can do. You can come in with a smile on your face and just try to get better each and every day. Listen to the older guys, listen to your coaches. And he's a good player. He's 16 years old, and he's as tall as me. He's a strong kid. He's quick, and he's a goal scorer. So I definitely see some potential in him. And then Tanner's been great as well. He's a good goalie, shot stopper. Yeah, he's one of those guys that's always hardworking as well. Whenever you ask him to stick around and do a couple of finishing drills, he'll always say yes. So his both of those kids' work ethic, you can see why they're at where they are right now. So hopefully we can get some more. There's so much talent in the Tampa Bay area, and I think little by little you're going to see a lot more players train with us and sign more academy contracts.
Well, that would be great, especially like I said, for us here at RBLR Sports, we love that. But all right, now I wanted to take you to some decompression questions. I don't want to lay all the pressure on here before the first game, but the first one actually comes from our producer. We wanted to discuss here why you switched from number 11 to number 10 this year.
It's pretty simple. My son asked me to. For me, obviously, I don't really. If I wanted to number 10, I would have got it a long time ago. My son, he's really into soccer now, so he's been watching Messi, and he really likes
gotcha.
Messi, and so he's like, "Why, Dad? Why can't you just wear number 10?" And I'm saying, "I'm number 11. I really like number 11." And he's like, "Oh, but come on, just pick 10." I'm like, "All right." Fine. So I just did it for him, so it's not really a big deal.
Okay, well, that leads me to another question before I get back to another one that Eureka has actually asked me to get to. But with your son, I'm assuming born in America, and you are originally from Brazil. Is there any tension there if he's a Messi fan? Is there anything like that?
Of course, yeah. I tell him, hey, you can't Messi cannot be your favorite player. It's not you're not allowed if you're Brazilian. But no, I'm just kidding. He when he last year when he came to the MLS, he was on that hot streak in the tournament. We were watching every game, so I don't know, he just loves watching him play. So it's all good.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will steer it back now. Eureka's question is, this is something that we actually saw from you in the preseason. You were part of the video that kind of showed everybody what we were going for. What is, your opinion of the new jerseys with the hoops on the sleeves? I think that was something that everybody was looking forward to for a while, and now that it's back, it was so much hype when it came out, your video, and I wanted to get your opinion specifically.
Yeah, I love it. The jersey's really nice. I was honestly just more nervous about my acting skills the whole time, but no, Sawyer made me look good. But no, it was it fits really well. I'm excited. I've only worn it once in the media day and then at that shoot, so I'm excited to actually play in it and wear it at Al Lang and score some goals in it.
There we go. I love that. All right. Well, I'll steer it back real quickly and ask you, if you were going to support a national team, let's say like one that happened recently, would you go for the U.S. national team first or the Brazilian national team first? Who takes precedence there?
It's a tough question. I'm honestly 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm super. I support both. Yeah, Brazil obviously they have the better team, so they're they're probably going to make deeper runs in World Cups right now. But for me, I support both. I make sure that my son supports both, and there's no bias towards any of them.
Okay, I got you. That's fair. That's a very diplomatic answer. My last fun question for you here was one that I always used to love doing, and I didn't get a ton of chances to do it recently. But I wanted to ask you, who's the best player that you've ever played with on any team, from youth to your professional level?
Wow. Okay, played with?
Yes, played with or against, either way.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess the best player I've played with, I would say when I was in Philly, the winger Ilsinho, the Brazilian guy. He played in São Paulo, Shakhtar. It's just his dribbling skills were unbelievable. And then when I played for the Cosmos, I played with Raul. Raul was another legend. And then I remember my rookie year in Philly, played against Thierry Henry. He was just a monster. Yeah, I think he was taller on the field, because I didn't realize how big he was until I got on the field with him. And then Landon Donovan was another guy that he was so quick. Just every time you think you could steal the ball from him, he's just 5 yards away from him. So yeah, those are the guys that probably pop up into my mind. And then here in the Rowdies, I got to give a shout out to my boy Seba.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And then my first 2 years here, Marcel Schaefer, which is just class. And then obviously Joe Cole. Those guys were unbelievable players.
That is a hell of a list right there. I'll tell you, that would be quite the 6 or 7 aside. That would be the 6 or 7 aside to beat most of them that I think I could come up with.
I've been very lucky, but I've played with a lot of good players, and I think that's why I've been able to just take a little bit of everything from all these players and just learn from them. So I've been very lucky.
Gotcha. Wow, that's awesome. Well, Leo, I apologize. I lied to you. Actually, I do have one more serious question. This comes straight from producer Eureka here. But just to finish, we'll leave it on this one. It's early, obviously. We haven't even got to our first game yet. But based on what you guys have been talking about in preseason and the way that you're shaping up, what is the identity that the Rowdies are trying to establish in 2024 to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, tough question, but I think if I had to just say the one thing is we just want to be very, very intense in the way we do things, and that's either it's our press, how we defend, how we attack, and we just want to be intense in other teams' faces and exciting, and just making the game fun for fans to watch, and scoring a lot of goals, and just hopefully that our soccer just brings out the fans, and they're like, wow, this is Rowdy soccer. This is a great team to watch.
An entertaining team. That's
Yeah.
I think that would be, I mean, you know, in amongst winning and goals and everything, entertaining football is always something that we love. But Leo, thank you so much for taking all this time to speak with us. You know, we obviously love when we get a chance to speak with Rowdy's players, Rowdy's coaches. Everyone at the organization has been so helpful, and we appreciate all the time that you've given us today.
No problem. No problem. I'll see you on Saturday, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
Right. Sounds good.
James, buddy, you just got to talk to Leo Fernandes, buddy. Let's go. Great job. Great job.
I love when I was saying this. I love when we can talk to Rowdy's players, former Rowdy's players, current Rowdy's players. But to talk to Leo Fernandes, you know, he is the guy, I think, at the club who's been there the longest now. So it's just, yeah, that's awesome. And he's also a very charismatic guy. You know, he loves talking to people at the games even.
Yes.
I think that anybody who's gone to a game and seen him afterwards will know that. So, yeah, thank you, Leo, for joining us. It was really great to talk to him.
He nothing but respect he's always given us as like the media or fan, like what, like it doesn't matter. He treats us the same way he treats the fans that wait for autographs. He gives the autographs, he takes the pictures. I've never seen him not give anyone a genuine interaction. And so nothing but amazing. I mean, that to me, how you treat the fans and how you treat us, I mean, I guess is another thing, but like I've no notes. He's spectacular. I like watching him put the ball in the net. I like watching him pass it to other guys who put the ball in the net, and they look to do that a lot. And so this was so, and plus he's got the right kind of story too, with battling back and being at this highest of highs, and then getting this gigantic injury that got him now. And so now he's hopefully back better, stronger, and with that kind of mindset, you overcome those sort of obstacles on the way to your hero's journey, I believe. So I love it, and you did a great job. Thank you to the Tampa Bay Rowdies for letting it happen. Thank you to Leo again for his time, being very gracious with that. So
yeah, absolutely. And with that now out of the way, we do have to talk about the game coming up that we discussed with Leo for a little bit there. Now, we have an interview coming up with a podcast that covers the San Antonio FC team and their game that they have already played, all of that kind of stuff. Beforehand, I just want to give a quick rundown of everything there. So obviously, we start out our season hosting San Antonio at 7:30 this Saturday at Al Lang. If we haven't said this already, be at that game.
Get there. Come on.
Make sure you are there. Now, San Antonio drew their first game of the season at home versus Loudoun United, 2-2, 1 point for each team. The left wing back, Lucas Silva, scored first, and Juan Agudelo got the second for San Antonio. Loudoun United actually leveled it in the 90th plus 4 minutes to make it 2-2. So good enough job from Loudoun United. San Antonio played roughly a 3-5-2 with Pablo Cisniega in net. We did not know who was going to be a starter, so that was interesting there. A little bit of a different lineup this year with Kevin Lambert in on loan. We discussed him when we did our Western Conference preview. He started with Mohamed Abu and Luke Hawkinson in the middle of the central midfield, like kind of as a triangle there. So that was another thing that we were worried about, like who was going to be lining up there, what were they going to look like, all of that kind of stuff. And then Jorge Hernandez started higher up the field as a partner to Juan Agudelo. Very interesting stuff to see exactly how that worked out for them at Toyota Park in San Antonio. So that is the background information. And here we go now to our interview with Puro SAFC. And here we are, folks, with Matthew Shattuck from Puro SAFC, who covers San Antonio week in, week out. Thank you for joining us this week. How are you doing tonight?
Buenas noches, James. It's good to see you. We've talked
Yeah.
before, but I've never seen your face, so I didn't recognize you at all. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean that was actually funny looking back. I should have introduced myself, but I didn't even think of it at the time. You're right. We had only talked on the phone before, so
Yeah.
this is the first time that we can talk with some video involved. And yeah, we have obviously a big game. It is our season opener and our home opener for San Antonio. You guys got started last week in a 2-2 draw with Loudoun United. I would assume that was probably a disappointing result because they scored so late, obviously. So I just wanted to start this off and get your perspective on how you think that game went and maybe what happened.
Yes, but I'm stuck on something, James. I'm sorry. Why didn't y'all play last week? There were like 6 teams off.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a quirk of the schedule, isn't it? It's there's some bug in the machine that kept us out of there for some reason.
Do y'all have a lot of Wednesday games? Because we have a couple, and it's like, why are there bye weeks if we have to play on Wednesdays?
I think that we have. I think I remember one at least, but I know that I'm forgetting some others. So yeah, I don't know why that would
Yeah.
be some. I don't get it personally.
Darn it! I was hoping you would have the killer insight because it was just threw me off. I was like, wait, why doesn't every team play on opening weekend? Like it's supposed to be a big deal or whatever.
It should be, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, to answer your question, man, it was a dud. I mean, honestly, I had left the stadium because we have a bad parking situation. So if you leave after the whistle, you're going to be in the parking lot for 30 minutes. And I have family and obligations. So there was a moment where we were sitting in the game together. My co-host on the podcast, Pluto SAFC, we were sitting there and it was like, well, we better score. And, I asked him, like, is someone else I think someone's going to score, whether it's we go up 3-1 or they tie 2-2, because it was 2-1 for a long time and almost too long. And they only had 10 men. So we were in the lead. They had 10 men after the 29th minute. And they're the third worst team in the East last year. Does that sound right to you? So, if it was against Tampa Bay, I would be laughing and high-fiving and saying, well, it's a great team. But Loudoun was pretty impressive. They were very athletic and older than they used to be when they were a DC United farm team.
Yeah.
And we're about to do our pod right after this, and my headline for our pod, spoiler alert, is growing pains. We have a lot of new players coming in. We have a good core back, but maybe half the starters are back, but half the starters are new, and they're really good. I was really impressed with the squad.
Okay.
As you hinted at when you told me what we might talk about, we've had a massive shift in how we play we can get into it later, but basically counterattack, high pressure, no possession, ping pong soccer was that was our method for 2, 3, 4 years. All of a sudden now we want to play possession style soccer and work the ball around and pass sideways and pass backwards. So it's a big change and a lot of new personnel. So pretty disappointing, but very, very understandable. And Tampa Bay, I think y'all are a lot like us. Like, we're not looking at the first week for our enjoyment. Like, It's a long season.
Yeah.
If we don't make the playoffs, proverbial SHIT will hit the fan. But we're looking to get into the playoffs with momentum, and this is just a starting point. So very disappointing, especially giving up the chances we gave up, playing 11 on 10. But in the end, it's just a starting point for, it's a long season.
Yeah, no, I mean, everyone, no matter how this game goes this weekend for both your fan base and our fan base, it'll obviously be everybody's tempering patience, because you've got to remember that it is a marathon. It is not a sprint, and you have to get into the end when you're doing well. It's not as big, like last season, especially, we did not start well, and it got better over the course of the season going into the playoffs. That's what it's supposed to be. So I totally take it from what you're saying there. That is absolutely true. But with that, I have been wondering, obviously, all the stuff that I've heard about San Antonio, everything from this offseason is, you guys are taking, like you said, the old way of playing. And I guess that's kind of what Alan Marcina is. That's in the past. He wants to move on with something new. So if you, based on how it went last week, what do you think San Antonio needs to improve upon so that they can get to be the team that's closer to what Alan Marcina wants and probably closer to getting a positive result out of the game, like a 3 points, in your opinion?
A lot of things jump in my mind, and Clayton will have very different views probably also.
Yeah.
I, I I think all of us who think about the game a lot wonder if the new way will stick.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
we were skeptical, and then the first preseason game was like, oh my gosh, they're really playing a completely different way, and it's very noticeable from the first kick. Um, and I think maybe some of the problem that I had was it was a little bit like there were still vestiges of the old style. I'll point out that the back three when we had the ball were really tight, and I need to talk to Clayton about what he thinks. But the three center backs were all on one side of the field,
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to
Okay.
play a ball possession game when the pass wasn't long enough to create any space for the other. So we gave up the ball repeatedly passing out of the
Mm.
back. And that's the growing pains. I don't know if that's what Coach Marcino wants from the system or if that's players just having old habits. Because we always had a tight block of three that would just move like a pong or thing across the back to
Yeah.
intercept the passes. I love this video feed. It's great for
Yeah.
tactics. And if you're going to possess the ball and play sideways and back to your keeper, you can't play across the back line and it only ends up still on the same side of the field.
I
And
see.
the same forward is shutting down all three defenders in the back.
Interesting.
And they also played two forwards real high. I think just connecting the dots in the new system. The individual skill, I think the old system was way more based on individual skill and 1-versus-1 battles and just kind of like making jump balls and making 50-50 balls in the box. And the new system is all about a system that is stronger than the players on the field, where the old system accentuated the players. This one, the players have to be more parts in a system rather than individual brilliant moments, which I don't know if you remember our teams in the past, but we've had some really great players who could
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
who could have, all league players who could make those moments of brilliance. And now they've got to transition to being in a system.
Gotcha. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the Rowdies last year, like I said, we had started out relatively poorly and it took a while for everybody to gel. So I expect that you guys are just doing a similar thing. But, from our perspective, naturally, I will say, hopefully it doesn't come off next week, of course, but
Yeah.
we will see. We will see how it goes. I'm sure that San Antonio has the thing that I will. Looking at that roster, I can't imagine that they won't put it all together eventually. I don't know if that'll be week 2 or week 3, week 10, whatever, but they're gonna put it together at some point. I'm absolutely faithful in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, same with Tampa Bay. I mean, when you look at the players and where they've been and the coaches, you see that these guys are the worst they'll do is still pretty good.
Right.
But
That's
I'll
kind of
say, sorry, we do have a history of this. We lost to Las Vegas last year, and we either tied or lost to Loudoun last year. And we went back and looked. Loudoun won 4 games all season, and I'm pretty sure they beat us 2-1 in one of the first games. So, and we lost to Las Vegas, who didn't win another game for months.
Oh,
It just
gotcha.
kind of we're better against the good teams sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think they don't lose 2 games in a row.
That's
Oh, that's
good.
a
That's
fact.
good.
You might not. Your listeners might. They play this every game. Whenever we get behind or lose a game, Alan Marcinez never lost 2 games in a row as coach. I think here or in Des Moines, where he was the head coach before, it's something absurd like 62 games in a row, where he's like 58 or 30, maybe it's 40 games in a row, like 37-0-3 following a loss. So
Wow. Okay.
he knows how to but I may have just jinxed it, but that's been his thing forever. Is we don't have we might have a bad run of form, but we don't go on losing streaks. Like
Gotcha.
the worst we'll do is a couple ties or a loss, a tie.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, that's also something to keep in mind for this upcoming game this weekend.
Can I ask you some questions about the Rowdies?
Absolutely, go for it.
What our listeners really just want to know one thing, and that's your opinion on Jordan Farr.
I think that Jordan Farr is obviously one of the best goalkeepers in the league, or he at least has the potential to be. I will say, I've spoken to somebody who covers San Antonio relatively frequently about this, and I guess that it seems like it was just a locker room issue down there or up there from my perspective. But it seems like Jordan Farr leaving San Antonio is just it's almost like it's San Antonio's loss, really. And I don't know exactly what went into that or not, but I am not convinced at this point that Pablo Cisniega, for instance, would be a better goalkeeper than Jordan Farr. I think that we replaced a very good goalkeeper from the last couple of seasons over and over, and I think that we did so again in this past offseason when we went and got him. I'm honestly very excited that Jordan Farr should be our number one. It's really looking positive from our perspective.
Yeah, he's a fan favorite down here. It was like panic stations. He coaches local kids. He's in the community. He's on TV ads. As big as a second division soccer player can be, he was probably definitely top 3, and I would say the most popular among the fans on the team. Just he always stayed after the games. He'd show up to the youth tournaments to just show his face. The kind of guy that would do that be involved. If you asked him to show up to a local charity event, I heard stories about him helping out people.
Oh yeah.
But as an analytical, like I'm a coach for 15 years now, he had some howlers last year.
Gotcha.
And if you compiled his howler list, it's not a lot, but there were, I'd say 5 to 6 that were not good. And so when they brought in the new goalie at the end of the year for the playoffs, the MLS cast off, there are a lot of questions and a lot of people were really upset at that time. And Clayton and I, we didn't want it, and I wanted Farr to start every game in the playoffs, but I understood. He had a few times he just came out of the box and whiffed or took a guy down completely unnecessarily. It was just like a little rash, a little spell of bad decision making. It didn't make him a bad goalie. It just kind of was and it could have been that behind the scenes there was drama and that was weighing on him or something, because you see that with players, especially a goalkeeper. But he had a bad run for about 2 months where he'd have he'd still make 3 amazing saves in that very game, but it would be a 1-1 tie, and the goal that gave up was like a penalty kick where he comes out unnecessarily or something. And
Gotcha. So it's something for us to keep an eye out on as the season progresses either way.
Yeah, consistency, just being steady. And the first 2 years, he didn't make a single one of those.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
It was weird. Where did this come from?
Well, I'm hopeful, like you said, if there's a change of scenery and then that boost in confidence that can bring, then hopefully that will kind of turn things around. Obviously, for us here in the perspective of a Tampa Bay fan, but I was not exactly aware of everything that had gone into it, so that gives us a little bit more background too.
We'd love to have him back. I planned on him being our starting keeper again this year, so we're sad.
Gotcha.
Who's a player we should look out for on your squad? If my mom went to the game and she doesn't follow soccer, is there a player that she would walk out being like, man, that number 6 is just what a great soccer player?
Well, I will say, and this is, partially to do with the player that we have on for our podcast that's going around the same time as this interview with you guys, but it's also the fact that he's back from a long season layoff, and that's Leo Fernandes. Last year, I should say 2022, he was the USL MVP overall, obviously, like the whole league, incredible season. And he, unfortunately, we did not win naturally, but he is still was good enough to get the USL MVP. So we're going into 2023. We have this great roster that looks on paper like it's supposed to be one of the best in the league, one of the best we've had in a while. Preseason, Leo Fernandes tears his Achilles and he misses almost the entire season. We get him back 2 games before the playoffs start, something like that. I think he comes on in the last 3 games, including our 1 playoff appearance as a substitute. So it was kind of disappointing as someone who was on this, very upward trajectory. He's coming back this offseason from, having actually got some playing time, and I'm assuming going to be playing as an attacking midfielder. That's where he was in 2022. And with 2022, and the changes from 2022 to 2023 and his injury, that's where I'm not entirely sure where he's going to line up, but I'm assuming he's our number 10. Leo Fernandes is going to be the go-to guy for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. It's just, I don't know exactly where he's going to be lining up every single game at this point. So
anywhere in
as
the
soon
attack.
as soon as we know where that's going to be, he's going to be the guy that I'm hoping, obviously, is on the receiving end of a lot of passes, and ultimately the guy who scores or the guy who has tons and tons of assists, because that's what he's capable of.
That's great. He came back at the end of the year because that way he's fully healthy. Has a whole preseason to get in shape, not
You
just
got
like
it.
first.
It's such a boost that
Yeah,
and I'm really that's what he was telling us in our earlier interview. So I'm very excited for him in 2024.
cool. Well, that was the wrong answer. The right answer after Jordan Farr is Nick Moon. He's a
Oh, gotcha.
pod favorite. Nick Moon
Didn't
was a
realize.
thorn in our sides, just terrorized SAFC. He took a few players' manhood over the years. We played them in some big games that mattered, and when he was on, it just tore us apart. Clayton is my pod buddy, my podcast co-host is a big English Premier League fan, and
Mm-hmm.
just I don't know how much you've seen him play, but for me, he's a old school get down the line winger. So he's just gonna mazy dribble over and over and over at your outside back, and he would just tear us apart.
Gotcha.
Sometimes.
Well, the likelihood that he starts is probably pretty high.
Really, you think he's a lock-in starter, pretty much?
I think, based on what I've seen and based on the roster that we have right now, I would be shocked if we didn't have 3 center backs at the back and then Blake Bodley as the left wing back and Nick Moon as the right wing back. That's what
Okay.
that's what I really highly expect to see out of this game. But again, we've only had preseason. Preseason only means so much. I can't be certain about much of anything right now.
Do y'all play 2 forwards up top?
I'm expecting that Leo will be one of the 2 forwards along with Cal Jennings or possibly Manuel Arteaga. Again, it's going to come down to probably just to who has the hottest hand at any given time.
Yeah, but so basically the systems are a mirror of each other, the 2 teams.
They could be. They could very well be.
3 in the back with wing backs and then some combination of midfielders and 2 forwards up top.
I would be shocked if that's not how we got lined up.
Yeah, because we can fiddle in our team with the midfield, or sometimes it might look like 3 forwards, but essentially it's 3 and 2, and then across the middle, a big group of people.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Huh. Well, how about this? Why don't you tell me where you think San Antonio will finish the year? Example could be USL champs or out in the first round of the playoffs, and then I'll tell you where I think Tampa Bay is going to be.
Absolutely.
And we'll start moving towards the proto pick 4.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, we did our preseason preview, and that included a West Coast conference preview where I split it up into 2 tiers. San Antonio was obviously in the top tier. And if I had to guess, I would put them, I mean, their roster is still so tight, and I think that they are still one of the best teams on talent. So I would say probably semifinals of, I should say that would be finals of the Western Conference at the very least, in my assumption. And then if they win that, obviously they would be, in the final. But I'm hoping that that's where they would lose to, obviously, the green and gold.
Yeah, well, Clayton's prediction in my notebook, I can open it up, is for his last prediction of the year. So we'll just call it our pod. The prediction we had last week in our season preview was Tampa Bay beats San Antonio 2-1 in the USL final with a Jordan Farr penalty kick save.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. That's very specific.
Very specific, but poetic justice, I think, because a lot of our fan base is still salty that Jordan Farr got let go.
Gotcha.
So maybe we're pandering to our listeners with that one. But so I mentioned it, but you guys entered the Proto Pick 4. I appreciate that. It turns out I need to reach out to everyone, but we got 14 or 15 podcasts to enter.
Oh, great.
So you were the first people we had on last year to preview a game, and I'm hoping to connect everyone on Twitter so that not only can we talk about the stupid contest, but just as an excuse for us to get together and do things like this across the league. Because
yeah, I
mean the cities in the league are so cool. Y'all's stadium looks so cool. Like I'd love to come out for a game sometime. And there's so many places like that: Phoenix, Las Vegas. Maybe not. Yeah, actually, the stadium in Las Vegas looks hilarious.
Yeah, it is.
Rhode Island. Rhode Island coming in, Pittsburgh. So thank you for entering, number one. And I'm trying to think of a prize or a contest or some special honor for the pod winners. Because we even have the USL show and some other people like that. So I don't know if you have any ideas on that.
Well, we're working on a prize for our own little predictions portion of our podcast, but so far we haven't successfully found a good one, and so we're kind of in the same boat there.
Okay, well, I'll reach out, and we're going to be workshopping it, but by the end of the soon here, we'll come up with something for everybody. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was just going to say, if you want me to go through my picks real fast, I can do that here. You had 2 boxes in the West, 2 boxes in the East, and I went with Sacramento, El Paso, Tampa Bay, and Hartford. Out of the ones that were in the West, I think Sacramento and San Antonio obviously are the 2 best in that one box, so had to pick one from there. Ultimately, I was just feeling Sacramento that day when I texted you guys, in all honesty, but I think San Antonio are going to take them all the way. It's going to be really difficult to choose between either of them. And then out of the second box, El Paso, their roster looks pretty strong for me. Tampa Bay, I've got to pick Tampa Bay no matter where they're going. And then the last one in our own preview of the Eastern Conference, I put Hartford in the second tier, and it was my own podcast host, Carlos, who unfortunately couldn't join us for this interview. But Carlos told me, I don't know about Hartford. They're looking pretty strong this year. I think you might be wrong with that pick. So that's why I went with Hartford. But those are the 4 picks that I went with based off of the boxes that you sent me. And it was just I actually took Carlos's advice on that one.
Yeah, I think Clayton had a lot of those same teams, and our pod together picked Sacramento, ironically.
Oh, really? Interesting.
When we did our own picks, I took SAFC and Clayton took Orange County. But man, Sacramento, they're just so hard to play against.
Yeah.
Even if they hadn't signed the new people and been so good last year, every year you just know you're in. It's probably like when teams play us, that you just know they know what they're doing and they're going to be professional and have a game plan. I mean, some teams you play like Las Vegas, you don't really even tell what the hell they're trying to do besides just play good soccer or something. And
yeah.
I feel like Tampa Bay, Louisville, maybe Pittsburgh, Sacramento, and San Antonio are the USL teams that every time you're going to play them, it's going to be game on. And
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we don't do game predictions on our pod. Do you have do you have a game prediction for this weekend's outcome?
Well, I did say I did part of that earlier in my notes here so that we could get to it when I got to the end of our episode. And my notes have a 2-1 win for the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Now, I wanted to ask you, what is the Puro SAFC prediction?
Well, we don't usually do it, and we're coming off a bad result. But I think tie, honestly. Since I'm the only one here, I'm going to say we tied last week against a bad team. Winning in Tampa Bay would be a lot. I don't put it past us. I don't, given the past history of Marcina, I don't think we'll lose. But if there was a team to lose to, Tampa Bay is one of them. Also, it's y'all's first game, so I'm maybe a little happy that you're going to maybe have some growing pains.
I wouldn't be surprised.
This isn't going to be peak Leo Fernandes, hopefully. I'm sure he'll be excited to play. But I'm sure week 15, Leo Fernandes will be a lot more dangerous player than week 1, Leo Fernandes. And tell you what, Jorge Hernandez, our center midfielder, is really good in this new system. So if you want a man to watch, for your listeners, did I mention one? I don't think I did. Our number 10. He just switched to number 10 this year, Jorge Hernandez. Do you know about him at all?
I knew his background a little bit. We did highlight him in terms of the players that looked, when we were doing our West Coast preview. So I didn't have a ton of background.
He was LA Galaxy too. He went over to Europe for a few years, got sold to a European team, and kind of washed out in Europe and came back to us. And we were really surprised. We had good players at his position, all league players. And those 2 guys have both moved on. And Jorge has lived up to the billing. He was all USL with LA Galaxy too when he was like 19 or so.
Gotcha.
Now he's maybe 22 or 23 years old, and he led the league in assists last year. And in our first game, he had both assists on our 2 goals. So he takes the corner kicks, he takes the free kicks. He's a great passer, and on free kicks, he will hit dimes. He can unleash a banger on a free kick. So he's one that'll jump off the page like with some stutter step, make a guy fall over type moves.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like the
All right.
left foot, a very, very poor man's Leo Messi.
Okay. Fair enough. Hey, fair enough. All right. Well, Mr. Shattuck of Puro SAFC, thank you so much for joining us. And obviously, I'm glad that we could help you guys out a little bit and from our end, but it's probably not the same analysis just because we haven't played yet. So we'll see exactly how it turns out in a couple of days.
Awesome, James. Look forward to it, and hopefully we'll play again in the playoffs. How about
Absolutely.
if you guys host, we'll come out to Tampa Bay, and if you're in San Antonio, y'all come on out. You can stay at my house.
I think that's perfectly fair.
Awesome.
And with all of that out of the way, we have gotten to the portion where we have to give our predictions here. Eureka, we got a really good background information and setup for this predictions portion.
Yes.
We do not have Carlos's yet. He will be giving his before we put those out on Friday or Saturday, whenever we do that. But Eureka, I'm going to ask you to go first. What is your prediction now that we have heard it all for this game against San Antonio?
I think that the lads are going to be chomping at the bit to show their defensive prowess at home. A lot of these games around the USL, defense seems to be the lay of the land right now, and I would assume that the Tampa Bay Rowdies have one of the better defenses in this league, and San Antonio still with their changing style and changing pieces. I think that you're going to see a 1-0 Rowdies victory to open the season. 1-0 is my guess there.
Okay.
Jordan Farr gets his first shutout, clean sheets, Krispy Kreme for Forest Lasso. 1-0 to the lads. Let's go.
Okay. All right. I like all of that. Now, I'm going to say as well that we get a win here. I'm going to say that we get a win that is actually 2-1. So that is my prediction. 2-1 win to the Tampa Bay Rowdies. All 3 points, even if it is not necessarily a clean sheet. And we will get Carlos's, like I said, before the game. You will see that on social media. If you would like to give us a prediction, don't worry. Coming up this season, we will need people to give predictions. We were just able to get one this week related to our San Antonio relations. Some of those with podcasts, some of those with writers. We actually know quite a few people who have San Antonio relations, I guess, don't we?
Well, and everyone out there, if you're listening to this, drop a comment on this video. What's your score prediction? How do you think the game is going to come? Drop that right into there. Right underneath, and then we'll revisit those and see maybe who was right, who was wrong.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see which of you listeners knows what you're talking about, because you know what? Mostly Carlos and I do not. Mostly Carlos and I get it quite wrong. So if there's somebody out there who knows what you're talking about, hell, maybe you guys should be on here more.
Last year was a tight race. It was pretty good. I think
it was tighter in the end, but I think between Carlos and yourself, Eureka, but we'll see how it plays out in 2024. Now, that is everything in this long episode. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, I know, folks, but there's so much going on. There's so much to talk about and so many people to talk to, in fact. So the last bit, we have a little bit left in our extra time segment. Hey, Eureka, I don't know if we've said this yet, so I apologize that we're waiting this long to get to it at the end of the episode, but get your tickets to Saturday night's game, people. Get your tickets. Get to the game. Get to Al Lang. Make sure you're there.
Let's go. Yeah, you come see us. We'll be hanging out. Come high five. People do come up to us and say that they listen to the podcast, and I'm grateful for every single one of them. So, share the love. Come on.
And you can tell us who was right or wrong about their predictions if you want to do that.
Let's go.
The last thing that I wanted to say, congrats to the U.S. women's national team for winning the first ever W Gold Cup last night against Brazil. That was something to watch. My wife and I stayed up late to watch it, actually, and that was, bad for Monday, but it was still good to have stayed up and watched it because obviously we love when the women's national team gets more silverware, and it was the first ever W Gold Cup. This was followed up by an announcement today, actually, that the women's side will be getting a CONCACAF Champions League. So there is a Champions League on the men's side, which is called the Champions Cup. I guess they changed the name over this past season. And the women's side will be getting a CONCACAF W Champions Cup in, I guess, later on this year. So roughly around August, I think it was. Either way, very interesting stuff for a lot of women involved, I'm sure, on the women's national team. And I'm looking forward to that as well.
Including our own first division Tampa Bay Sun FC, maybe?
That's right. That's right. They're going to be able to compete, I'm sure. You know, we'll just have to see what the qualifications are to get into that competition. But yeah, that is something to keep in mind. Maybe we need to get on the horn with with RBLR Sun and get some information there.
I like that idea.
Yeah. Now, listeners, we have kept you on for a long time. Obviously, there was so much to talk about, like I said, but we appreciate you sticking around all the way to the end. If you have done that, please do one more thing for us and follow us on social media at RBLR Sports. We are on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere you are, we are too. I am mostly on Twitter at RBLR James K. What about yourself, Eureka?
I am at Eureka RBLR on Instagram and Twitter, and some sort of mix between my beautiful son, who just turned 3 years old, a little bit of wine content, and of just me kind of throwing random stuff out there for entertainment. Although I didn't muse to myself that the Mandalorian theme song is just Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer slightly turned down.
Oh, interesting.
Think about it.
I will have to follow up with my Mandalorian heads out there.
It's a great theme song. If you haven't heard the Mandalorian theme song, it's like,
I'm going to check that out after this.
It's choice.
All right. And our last bit here, like and subscribe to our podcast. We obviously appreciate if you have, but if you haven't, help us out and do that. You can give us just a little bit more data by giving us that like and subscribe, and that would help us out. Not your data, I'm saying, to help us out with the podcast. Obviously, we don't know who the hell you are just because you
We're taking all of your data.
Yes, exactly. You can get the full experience on YouTube, but we are also on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts. Again, wherever you are, we are there. Thank you for tuning in this week, and we will see you at Al Lang. Come on, you Rowdies.
Get your behind to Al Lang. Give us a high five. Let's see the hoops. Let's light the smoke. Let's get the tifo. Let's go. Come on, you Rowdies. Let's do this.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.